quorum, so should I go ahead and get started?
Yep.
Okay, I'm going to call the meeting to order. Welcome. This is the regular meeting of the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee on Wednesday, February 3rd, 2021, and it is now 6:04 p.m. So I'm going to request that Lauren Davini, the traffic engineer for Department of Public Works, will call the roll.
Okay, Member Allison?
Present.
Member Bergman?
Here.
Member Haggerty? Member Mooney?
Here.
Chair Powers?
Here.
Member Solomon? I need Member Solomon's trying to log in. Alternate member Coyne?
Here.
Alternate member Garrity? No, and youth member Nielsen. Member Haggerty just joined, and you should be able to turn on your video now.
Okay.
Again, I apologize. It seems like most people are getting set up.
Lauren, can you, for some reason, Lindsay sent out the invitation like last week sometime, and I had a hard time finding it. That's why I'm late. Would it be possible to send out a reminder notice the day before?
Yeah, I can do that.
Thank you.
Okay, I just need one moment to try to help Member Solomon. Let me go through my spiel here. So this meeting is being held virtually, and viewers are welcome to provide public comment online or by telephone at 669-900-9128. The meeting ID is 846-8422-9428. The password is 071169. If you're watching the meeting and wish to provide public comment, please select the participants icon and select raise hand. If you are participating by telephone and wish to provide public comments, please press *9 when the chair opens the public comment period. When it is your turn to speak, you'll hear a notification that you have been unmuted, and you'll press *6 to unmute yourself. You'll have 2 minutes to speak. If you're submitting public comment to be read aloud into the record via the chat function, please write public comment in caps, introduce yourself, and write in your comment. There might be a character limit, so please submit your comment in groups.
Okay, we're on to agenda item number 2, which is the housekeeping report. Lauren, will you provide the committee with the housekeeping update?
The housekeeping report is we have 7 members in our committee with the loss of committee member Jerry. And then with the our youth member, Shoshana Harlem, her second term expired. So she's reached her term limit, and we are still working through the process of if we want to go out for 2 more committee members, or if we want to keep the committee to the 7 voting members. So that's my only update.
Okay. Does anyone from the BPAC have any questions for Lauren? Okay, seeing none. Are there any public comment on that?
I have a quick question with our 7 members, and ideally we have 2 youth members. So will it start to be 7 members, including those 2 youth members, whenever another rollover or term expired happens?
Can you ask that again?
So
Sorry.
traditionally we have 2 youth members, so we lost Shoshana as the one. Will we have 2 youth members and then 5 at-large members? Is that the ultimate goal for the committee, to have 7 voting members total?
I don't have an answer for you. That is a good idea. We definitely want more youth participation, but for now, we're gonna work with the number that we have, and that's the 7 voting members with our 2 alternates who are also always welcome to participate.
If I could just make a note, I think historically we had 7 regular members, 2 youth and 2 alternates, but the youth historically weren't voting. So it was still 7 regular. So if we were to go to the 7 with 2 youth, we would have 5 members that were not youth and 2 that were youth, which is a little bit different than it's historically been. So I'll just throw that out there for perspective.
Hey, Lauren, can you, I'm trying to get on the video and I have a message that says you cannot start your video because the host has stopped it.
So I just made everyone co-host. You should, and that just happened, you should be able to start your video.
Okay, thank you. I got it.
Again, apologies. There's a bunch of functions in this Zoom and I think I clicked something.
So Lauren, Jimmy and Mark have both joined. Are they able to also join by video?
Good thing there's unlimited co-hosts. Goodness for that. So, okay, I just made all of our panelists co-hosts, so you should have microphone and video capability.
Okay, following that, not sure if Mark's able to get on. Are there any public comments on the housekeeping report? So I'll look for raised hands. We have one, Jean Severinghouse. Are you going to monitor the participants, or do you want me to?
I will monitor the participants. And we have member Coin taking time, so she'll raise her timer when the 2 minutes is up or give you a warning when it's close. Looks like we have Jean Severinghouse, so you're being unmuted.
Hi, everybody. Great to see you. Sorry you can't see me. And, you know, the youth members have provided enormous value. So I guess our youth members not here tonight, but I would encourage you to be sure that you do have the 2 youth members, whatever it takes, and not just sort of let it fizzle if that's possible. So that's my input. Thanks.
Any other public comment?
I'm practicing giving more time for folks to have an opportunity to raise their hand. I don't see anyone raising a hand. And Craig would like to speak. So let's see. Craig, you've been unmuted.
Thanks, Lauren. Everybody hear me?
Yep.
Okay. 2 items tonight, folks. So first item is TAM Bicycle Ped Advisory Group meeting is this Thursday, February 11th at 5:30. I spoke with the TAM planning manager, Derek McGill, today. Derek advised that this TAM BPAC meets periodically, as made up of not of the TAM board, but representatives from large and small marine jurisdictions and advocacy groups. And they currently review bike ped projects and make recommendations for funding. One of the items the group would like to review on Thursday's agenda is the e-bike study for Marin. So it'd be good for coordination to have a SRB PAC member linked to the TAM BPAC. So the request is SRB PAC request city to appoint a SRB PAC rep to serve on the TAM BPAC.
Craig, can you hold your other comments until public comments for items not on the agenda? These were just comments on the report that Lauren gave about the number and who would be part of the committee.
Oh, the housekeeping. Got it. All right. Sorry, I'll hold the second item.
We're gonna get to. I'll come back. We'll come back to you on number 4.
Okay.
Are there any other comments regarding the housekeeping?
Yeah, to clarify, comments on housekeeping, seeing none.
Okay, seeing none, we will close the public comment for item number 2, and we'll move on to item number 3, which is approval of the meeting minutes. Do any members of the BPAC have any questions or edits or comments on the minutes? Okay, seeing none.
I move that the meeting minutes be approved.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Lauren, do you want to, could you open the, are there any comments from the public on the meeting minutes? Sorry, Lauren, just trying to move things along.
Give me just a second. No comments on the meeting minutes.
Okay. And so will you do the roll call?
Yep. Member Allison,
Aye.
Member Bergman,
Here.
Member Haggerty,
Yes.
Member Mooney,
Yes.
Chair Powers,
Yes.
Member Solomon,
Yes.
alternate member Coyne. I guess you know. Alternate member Garrity.
Yes.
Okay.
And Tyler is now on. I don't know if his video's been enabled.
Oh, thanks for letting me know.
Yeah, it doesn't work for some reason.
Tyler, I just made you a co-host and you should be able to use your video.
Oh, there we go. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm late. I thought it was at 6:30. My bad.
Lauren, and do you want to call on, we just reviewed the minutes, Tyler. And we're moving.
Yeah, approve. Sure.
Okay. All right. So the minutes have been approved. We're moving on to item number 4, which is public items or public comments for items not on the agenda. This is the time for the public to comment on topics that are not on the agenda. We value the public's attendance and participation at BPAC meetings, and we thank you for attending. In accordance with the Brown Act, the BPAC will not discuss items that are on the agenda or that are not on the agenda, but your comments will be noted in the meeting minutes. And in some cases, the Department of Public Works staff may reach out to you directly regarding your specific concerns. And some topics may become agenda items for future BPAC meetings. Your comments must be limited to 2 minutes. Anna's going to help me keep time, and we're going to be very strict on that tonight. So Lauren.
Thanks, Kate. So if you wish to speak, please either use the raise hand function, or if you're on the phone, you can press *9. I'll unmute you, and then you press *6. So I see 2 hands up. We'll let
Could we start with Craig and see if
yeah.
he can finish? Great.
So Craig, we're gonna unmute you.
Okay, everybody hear me?
Yeah.
All right, good. So I'll just hop into my second item. I put all this in writing too and provide to Lauren for whoever's the minute taker tonight. My second item is on safe routes to school planning meetings. So just an update from our December 2nd presentation at BPAC and Wendy Callan's efforts in North Santa Fe and other parts of Santa Fe. So I spoke with Derek McGill today. He's kind of handing off the Safe Routes program to Dan Cherrier over at TAM. As you may know, TAM is responsible for that program. Um, I was looking at really what's being funded in a funding list on the website was the 2010 list and evaluation sheet. So Derek will have David Chan provide that updated funding list. Marin County's half-cent sales tax for transportation was approved in 2010. That provides a $10 vehicle license fee. And then one thing I wanted to share with the committee tonight is I found a vehicle in Santa Fe in my area from Jalisco that's been here at least over a year with no California registration, therefore no VLF. So this is an example, as well as other unregistered vehicles that hurt a program such as Safe Routes to School. I spoke with Santa Fe's parking enforcement manager, Jim Myers. He's the parking services manager, and he can help. So if you see those in your neighborhoods and things, to contact Jim. His phone number 415-458-5333. And then to continue on with the Safe Routes to School, there's party item, which is the 101 undercrossing at Smart Station. David Santishi and I, he's a San Fel Clean Team member, cleaned up this route. It was really a muddy mess. A young mom or son were trying to traverse through the area with overgrown broom, trash, graffiti, and a mud puddle path. Yep. Okay. So basically just asking the committee and city to continue to support efforts on North Santa Fe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Craig. Jean Severinghouse.
Hi. There's 3 kudos. One is kudos to engineering and all the advocacy and the funders who provided the Rice to Second pathway. It's gorgeous. It truly meets all needs. If you haven't been on it, go for a walk. It's stunningly great and beautiful. And I didn't understand what they're talking about the car carrier having to get through that corner. And I was out there when the car carrier came through that corner. And I have lots of pictures if anybody wants them. So that's number 1. Great job. Number 2 is kudos for the groundbreaking quick build that I'm pretty sure Lauren was involved in, engineering, and MCBC and Bay Area Toll Authority's contract engineer. The quick build crossing at Grange of Francisco for the connection to the Richmond Santa Fe Bridge path is amazing and fast and way safer. You actually have good sight lines. And third is kudos to Bay Area Toll Authority and many, many parties, including Caltrans, who collaborated and are rightly proud of a very unusual collaboration to make that barrier protected 2-way pathway across 580 on San Francis Drake from Anderson down to Francisco. It's way safer now to go up and down Anderson and down that connection to get to the Richmond Santa Fe Bridge pathway. So thank you everybody who did that.
Great. Thanks, Jean.
Patrick Seidler.
Good evening. Good to see everybody. Here with some good news tonight, and I hope you all are receptive to it because you, of course, have a starring role. And that is that you guys are never going to believe this, but SMART has money. They turns out that they budgeted so strictly that they have a pile of cash, maybe a lot of it. I'm not going to describe exactly how much. I sat through the meeting. It was very complicated. And they're also, believe it or not, they're reserving some money as a set aside, possibly for projects like the North-South Greenway or the Smart Pathway. And so what I would urge you to do is to take it up as an issue as the BPAC and to make a recommendation to the city council that brings it in front of the city council, because what they're looking for, there's a competitive process, and San Rafael has 2 key links that are missing. The segment from the top of Puerto Suelo Hill to North San Pedro Road, and then the path out that crosses South Galenas Creek out past Embassy Suites. The other one's from Anderson to Second, but it's kind of tied up with the transit center. Anyway, the point of the story is there's money there to build the most important segment of the North-South Greenway that happens to be in San Rafael. It's the only segment that has not been environmentally cleared, and they have money. That's the key. So what we need is we need your tenacious attention, and we could build the next great segment of the North-South Greenway after Anderson and Second. And you'd be able to ride your bicycle all the way from Corte Madera to the Civic Center when this project's done. So it's a really big link, 7 miles through the county. And we need your help now. We'll be reaching out to other groups as well, but it's a really good news. So great seeing you guys, and look forward to working with you on the next segment of the Greenway.
Thanks, Patrick.
Warren Wells.
Hi, Chair Powers and committee members. My name is Warren Wells, and I'm the new Policy and Planning Director for the Marin County Bicycle Coalition, replacing Bjorn Griepenberg. I was just calling to introduce myself and let everyone know that I'm really looking forward to a productive relationship with SRBPAC. That's all I've got to share for the moment, but wanted to note that I can be reached at warren@marinbike.org, which I'll put in the chat in case anyone wants to copy over. Thanks so much.
Great. Thank you, Warren. Nice to meet you. Are there any other?
I'll give everyone another moment to either raise their hand or write public comment in the chat. Sunny Lee, this is for anything not on the agenda.
Hello, everybody. I'm very sorry that I wasn't really totally following that at the beginning of the meeting, but I think it's a non-agenda item. So I want to just simply, since Rafa is here, I'm going to talk to him about this ongoing situation on 2nd Street by the Lindaro towards Tamalpayas and Lincoln. Since the one-way conversion on the West Francisco Boulevard. Now all the heavy traffic coming up from Lincoln, from basically near Arwin to going north. There's a huge traffic now going up. Now that's interfering all the traffic coming down from Lincoln to make a 2nd Street turn to go to the highway 101 southbound on ramp, as well as Lincoln traffic going north, going 101 northbound on ramp. So now there's X-shaped traffic is happening right at the intersection of 2nd and Lincoln. It's so severe now that all the cars going actually crossing the 2nd Street couldn't get through because all the turning left or turning right lane is blocking the lanes entirely since the West Francisco Boulevard has been turned into one way. I remember the first meeting of BPAC meeting, I went in person on February 2019 at the Santa Fe City Building. I expressed the concerns this might have a cause of one-way conversion on the West Francisco Boulevard very strongly, because I have sensed that this is gonna cause a lot of problems. I remember Patrick, who was just spoke a little bit. I'm sorry. So I wrap it up. I'm very sorry. I wrap it up. But I want to just strongly express that how frustrating it is. This meeting is making all the decisions, prioritizing the bike path, but nothing for the traffic flow.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Sunny. Are there any more public members of the public that would like to provide comment or have anything to contribute? Okay. I don't see anything in the chat. Do you see anything, Lauren? If you would like to comment, if you would like your comment read in the chat, you should write public comment Lori, did you want your comment read?
Okay.
Are you going to read it, Lauren?
Yeah, I'm happy to read it. This is from Lori S. I'd like to know what you have learned about Caltrans closing the right turn from Hetherton onto 4th Street and whatever else their plans are for the transit center. Same question for Freitas Parkway, where you apparently chose roundabout.
Okay, thank you for the questions, Lori. Are there any other comments or questions from the public?
No.
Okay, thank you. We'll close the public comment on items not on the agenda, and we'll move on to item number 5, which is the 3rd Street, Lindara Street intersection improvements. April, thank you for presenting today.
Sure, let me just share my screen. I guess I should start with the first slide. Thank you, BPAC, for having me tonight. Tonight, I'm going to go over a couple items, but to start, we're going to do a review of the 3rd and Lindaro intersection. So the 3rd and Lindaro intersection is part of the 3rd Street Safety Project. It's actually on the border between the Safety Project and the Rehab Project. And it's in downtown. So kind of just to go over the timeline of the 3rd Street projects and 3rd and Lindaro in general. So back in 2017 and through 2019, the city and their consultants worked on a feasibility study for the 3rd Street projects. And then in June of 2019, a feasibility study was presented to City Council. And at that meeting, one of the options that was brought up to consider during design was the closure of the driveway on the north side of Lindaro. So between 2019 and 2020, the city worked on hiring a consultant. They also secured some federal funding for part of the projects. And then early last year, concept designs began between the city and their consultants. So in September of last year, there was a virtual meeting to review revised design concepts that changed since the feasibility study. Some of those we presented previously at BPAC in regards to the bike path that's on 2nd Street, which was a change from the feasibility study. And in addition to was also the Lindaro intersection. All the key issues that came up from the virtual public meeting were presented at City Council in November. So one of the reasons we're here tonight to talk about 3rd and Lindaro is since the November 2nd City Council meeting, we received a bunch of feedback from the community, including a 40-person petition, over 13 letters, all discussing the 3rd and Lindaro intersection. So here's a little bit more of an overview of where 3rd and Lindaro is at. The driveway we're talking about here is on the north side. This is Lindaro here. That runs north-south and then 3rd Street. So the driveway that we propose to close in the City Council meeting and at our community meeting was here on the north side. It's a public city-owned parking lot that also serves Walgreens in downtown. Here's a design drawing that we presented that shows the driveway being closed, and then some of the reasons that we showed the driveway to be eliminated. Some of these include eliminating a conflict between pedestrians who are crossing the driveway here on the north side. It also removes a non-standard approach to this intersection. And then this is all detailed in the staff report too, but in addition, so right now, and this is lane number 3 here, when cars make this turn into the driveway here, it's a very tight turn, which sometimes even causes cars to back up out of the way, which causes a backup on 3rd Street in order for people to try to access this parking lot. It also reduces congestion in the parking lot because the people who are in the parking lot are only going to the parking lot. And then it also eliminates a conflict between vehicles who are traveling northbound and southbound. So this was the concept that was presented in November. Here's just a little bit, some more pictures of what some of our concerns are. Here's a picture of a truck who's actually trying to make a turn into this lot. This also happens with vehicles. We just grabbed a photo of a truck that turns in here, and as you can see, this vehicle is actually backing out of the way in order to get this truck in, which causes a backup onto 3rd Street. Here's some traffic volumes that are at this intersection right now during the peak AM and PM timeframes. This is how many cars go in and out total from this driveway versus 3rd Street. As you can see, this is how many cars travel on 3rd Street during those same peaks. So after we received a bunch of feedback from the community, we decided to look at some more options and come up with a second alternative for this intersection that meets some of the same goals that closing the driveway does, but not all of them. So in this concept here, we're actually showing an exit only out of the driveway here. And then this concept helps with, we're also going to standardize this crossing so that there's going to be curb ramps on either side for pedestrians. So it looks and feels more like a standard intersection that would be signal controlled. This is a very wordy slide, but this is our table of kind of what we looked at and what the benefits are for closing the driveway versus doing a one-way southbound. And as you can see in our analysis, that the one-way southbound achieves most of our objectives, but not all of our objectives. So for this meeting, we just wanted to go over this intersection, allow a time for anybody from BPAC or the public to review our new alternative, our second alternative, which is the exit only, and have a time for them to provide comment. So if there's any questions or comments on our two alternatives, I'll turn that over to Lauren to manage the comments.
I think that first I wanted to just ask if there were any questions from BPAC members. If you have any questions on what was presented or needing clarification about anything, we will, as committee members, have a chance to offer comments after the public comment. Does anybody have any questions or clarifications needed?
A simple question, Kate. April,
DJ? Oh, I'm sorry, Mark. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Thank you. April, the driveway that we're considering closing or making one way, roughly, is it about what, 50 feet from the actual next intersection west?
I think from our staff report, it's 60 feet. So yeah, so it's pretty close to the Luton's intersection.
Okay. Do you know if there's any standards related to driveways and how close they are to an intersection?
I'd have to defer to Lauren on that. I'm sure there is.
Fine. Okay, just kind of curious.
Sorry, what was the question?
The intersection just west of the driveway is about 60 feet away. Are there any standards about how the typical distance that we want to maintain a driveway from an intersection?
I don't know the answer to that, but I know on a major thoroughfare like 2nd Street or 3rd Street, you want to minimize the number of access points on such a busy road. And so you try to funnel people to things like our public streets. So Lindaro, you funnel them to the next street, which is A Street. I'm not sure of a standard, but you want to minimize.
Thanks.
I have a comment or a question or both.
Go ahead, Jimmy.
When people are pulling out of a parking lot or a side street, they only look in the direction where cars are coming from. They're not looking at sidewalks or to the right. So when people are pulling out of there, they're in their car at the exit of the parking lot. They're looking to the left from the direction of which cars are coming. So if a person's walking or a family's walking from their right, they don't see them. And I've been knocked off my bicycle before by cars that just don't see and pay attention to anybody to their right. They're only concerned about cars that are coming down the road. What are we going to do about that problem?
I'm happy to help answer that. So if we were to if this alternative of exit only goes forward, then there's options like you could say no right on red for the exit only. So they could only go on a green light. Either they make the southbound right, or they proceed through. And I think that would help with what you're talking about, Jimmy.
In theory it would, but in practice, I don't think too many people would pay attention to that, to be honest with you.
DJ, did you also have a question?
Yeah, I did. I have a couple questions for staff. So first, I'm just wondering if we have any data that shows that we've had bike or pedestrian conflicts with vehicles at the driveway in the past. Like, I'm curious if this has been a place where we have had, people getting hit by cars or bikes getting hit by cars in the past. And the other question I had was from a traffic, I'm not a traffic engineer, and I'm curious, like from a traffic engineer's perspective, how significant of a effect does it have on throughfare for vehicles every time you have a vehicle slowing down to make that right turn into a driveway, considering that they have to slow down pretty much to 10 miles an hour to make that turn. So I guess my question is, is this an area where we've had a lot of conflict with PEDs? And I also want to know, how much benefit there is to gain from traffic throughfare from eliminating the intersection. It seems to me like, I don't know, from my understanding of reading the staff report and also reading comment letters and things from the public, it seems that the primary benefit from converting it to either closing or converting it to an exit is that there are really benefits to vehicle throughfare for the most part, to be honest. And it also seems like the biggest impact is circulation for exiting vehicles. So I guess from my perspective, it seems like the exit only alternative fixes some issues and corrects some things better. But I guess I'm curious about the throughfare question and also the PED impact question.
I can start with that. The collision history is, I don't believe we have anything documented between vehicle and pedestrian or bike and pedestrian. That doesn't mean there haven't been close calls. I think April can comment on being out there and kind of being the person crossing the driveway and having someone trying to fly around and get into the driveway. Your other comment, I believe, goes back to just kind of what Mark had asked about, is you want to limit the number of access points, because we can watch video. We do see the backup happening in that northernmost lane when we showed a picture of a truck, but even a more normal sized vehicle is trying to make that turn when someone's waiting to leave the driveway, how that affects traffic and queuing in that northernmost lane. So it is an issue. Kate, you're on mute.
Tyler has a question. Tyler, you're on mute.
Yeah, I guess my question is just, how bad is it really going to be if it is fully closed off? Is there any way to solve the problems people are complaining about on the other side, easily, reconstructing that part, the other entrance?
Are you talking about the Luton Street entrance?
Yeah.
That's the only.
If it's difficult for the truck getting in, how hard is it for a truck to go around the other way or something? Or could that road be made a different direction for the truck? Or how, I don't know if it makes sense.
April,
I'm not quite sure what you're asking.
Never mind.
Or should it be no trucks?
We need to maintain truck access. It's for Walgreens.
And Phil had a question.
Yeah, first for Tyler's comment, I thought maybe what he was explaining is the other entrance that's on Luton's, if that could be modified to make it easier for vehicles to get in and out. That's sort of how I understood it.
Yeah, that's what I was saying basically.
Yeah, and so staff can answer that. But my question was that previous slide we were looking at the current conditions, is that complete with the proposed bike path that BioMarin was considering including on Lindaro Street? What is the status of that? Is there going to be a striped green bike path going north and south on Lindaro?
I don't know the status of that. Rafat might.
It was in the initial proposal for that BioMarin, is they would put a bike path there, but I just don't remember what happened to that, if that got taken away somewhere. So that would be on like the previous slide that you were sharing. And so my question is if there's, yeah, on this, are there additional bike paths that will be put in place that are not shown here?
If I may answer the question, good evening, everyone. My name is Rafat Ray. I'm a city traffic engineer. And yes, the BioMarin proposal, and that was taken to the BPAC as part of the sort of the negotiations towards the end of the approval process. They proposed a potential bike path on Lindaro. I don't believe that the limit of that extended to 3rd Street. I believe it was as an alternative to the abandonment that was very controversial at this body. They proposed a bike path between 2nd and basically 2nd to the south. And even that bike path has not been fleshed out completely. I mean, in terms of how much parking we would potentially lose and all that. But I don't believe that the bike path extended to 3rd Street.
Okay. Are there any other questions?
Yeah.
Real fast. Yeah, so Tyler, for your concern on whether or not we could improve the driveway on Luton's in response to the question or the comments we received from the public, one of the main issues is access from downtown and this parking lot for people who are to the south, kind of in the Bret Hart neighborhoods or further south from there, and that when they exit this parking lot, if they exit only from this driveway, there's multiple crossings with, or more crossings with pedestrians at crosswalks than there would be if they just came straight out. So that was one of the concerns that they brought up, is that there's more conflict points. And there was a letter that was attached to the agenda that that Lauren sent out earlier today that kind of describes some of the comments.
Okay. So I see Anne.
Have it so that it's spiked at an exit so that people cannot make a right turn and get into the parking lot? Because I can see people still doing that even if it's illegal, and that could be causing more problems.
I think there's ways you can design it to really prevent people from doing it. I think we'll need to do a good job with, if we go this direction, I think we need to do a really good job of letting people know of the changes. So some maybe extra temporary signage when it happens. You can put signs at the driveway, it'll say do not enter, stuff like that. Change habits.
Kevin, did you have a
Yes, today Lauren
question?
forwarded to us 2 letters from some citizens complaining about or expressing some concerns about the proposed changes. I think April just addressed one of those comments. I'm wondering if staff could address the other comments so we could get a perspective from the city staff standpoint.
Yeah, so we had 2 folks write in today. I forwarded their correspondence to the BPAC members. I didn't get them posted today, but they will be up very soon after this meeting, probably tomorrow. But some of the concerns, I'm sorry, I can't summarize it right now. I don't know if any of the committee members want to comment on or summarize what those concerns were. I know one of the biggest ones is by closing it entirely, if you're someone trying to exit from Walgreens and you want to go home to Gerstle Park, or you want to get to Highway 101 South, you can't go straight. You wouldn't be able to go straight down Lindara. You'd have to loop, make a few right turns and loop around in order to get to 101 South. And by those extra turns, making additional turns through intersections, you're increasing the number of vehicle pedestrian conflicts. And that's with, and I think that is with closing it, but if it's one way exit only, a lot of those issues are resolved because they can continue to go straight down Lindaro and continue on to 2nd Street or south on Lindaro.
And Phil, did you have a second comment?
Yeah, I did. My comment was,
or question.
yeah, a question for staff. You had the numbers of vehicles going through that intersection. I'm curious when you took those peak numbers and if that was before or after the Francisco Boulevard West project. The reason that I ask that is, if you remember with Francisco Boulevard West, we are now routing vehicles around that are traveling north through the city, probably primarily onto Lincoln, but also onto Lindaro and onto Anderson as they continue to move north. And so, you know, one of the things that we discussed with that is that we're pumping more cars that are going to go north on these other roads, mainly Lincoln, but also potentially Lindaro. And if that's a case, I think if they're going north, the natural thing they do is be going west on 3rd Street. So potentially more traffic turning left there, driving north on Lindaro, turning west to go out on 3rd Street. In which case, you know, like that left turn could potentially back up and would be slowed down by this exit. So it would be slower for most traffic. So anyway, that's why I was wondering when, I guess my question for you is when those numbers were taken, or those.
That's a great comment. I referenced it in the report. These counts are an average from counts taken on a day in 2016 and 2017, because I didn't want to take, we have more recent counts, but given COVID and the very kind of, we don't know what's normal from last year, we went, I thought it made the most sense to go back to something where we had typical conditions. But I didn't think about the reroute of Francisco West. That's a good point.
Okay. I don't think I see any other hands. I just have a quick question, April. How many parking spots are in that public parking lot?
I count between 25 and 32. I remember counting them, but I only know that because I counted it versus the number of accessible stalls that are required. And sorry, I don't remember that off the top of my head.
Okay, that's fine. And, the entrance on Luton's is also an exit currently, is that correct?
It's an entrance and exit, yeah.
Okay, so currently a lot of traffic is not using that as a throughput, probably. Yeah, you know, 25 or 30 cars parked in the parking lot, and people aren't using this heading north for any reason, to go through the parking lot, to cut through for any reason, I would imagine. That just occurred to me, and I was just asking about that. Okay. Phil, your hand is still up, and I'm assuming you're okay. I'm going to go to public comment, if that's okay, with everybody.
And I'm going to ask April to stop sharing her screen so we can see everyone. You may need to reshare it, but. So we'll take public comment. If you're writing in, please preface your comment with public comment so we know that you want it written, read out loud. I have 2 folks that have their hands up on the phone. So we'll start with Sunny Lee. Sunny.
She's muted.
Sunny, I'll come back to you. It looks like Dawn. I'll let Dawn talk and I'll come back to Sunny. So Dawn Magdance.
For some reason, when talking is permitted, it shows their mics are off. Oh, there we go. Oh,
Thank you. Don Magdance. I use this going on Lindaro into Walgreens parking lot quite often, so I'm well aware of the problems there. One of the problems, you may have done this a long time ago, but it's basically a sidewalk that happens to have a traffic, two-way traffic going on it, as opposed to two-way traffic that the sidewalk interfaces to. When you come out of there or come in there on your bicycle, oftentimes the pedestrians are just walking. Even though there's a walk sign there, they're walking on that sidewalk. So they don't really know that that is a exit and an entrance. So I think the proposed exit only is a great idea because it will now make it into a street that pedestrians have to cross. And I think that that's a good benefit for this parking lot. It looks to me like it would work quite well.
okay. Thank you, Dawn.
Okay, I'm gonna try to go back to Sunny. Sunny, you need to press *6. Okay, Sunny, I'll come back to you again. Binky, you'll press *6.
Hello, can you guys hear me? Yes, hi, glad to be here tonight. I know we're not looking at April's wonderful slides right now, but one of the things that I feel like we aren't as focused on as we look at just the driveway coming in and out of the Walgreens lot on Lindaro is what's happening with pedestrian traffic on Luton's. You know, like I know it's easy to see the pedestrian traffic along 3rd Street, but for those of us who use that parking lot, you know, I park in the parking lot with my vehicle, but I am primarily a pedestrian downtown. And there is heavy, heavy pedestrian traffic on Luton's. So one of the concerns with closing the driveway and forcing vehicles to then exit, it would mean all vehicles are entering through the Luton's exit or entrance, and all vehicles are exiting there. So it actually, from my perspective as a pedestrian, it puts me at more danger trying to get across that driveway where there's no stop signal at all. And, you know, back and forth, there's a pet food store there. There's also another large parking structure that we often walk through. You know, we walk underneath that parking structure to get to other areas on 4th Street. It's safe. There's like a little sidewalk in there, but we have to get to it. So, you know, I'm a huge fan of leaving that exit open for for a number of reasons, but primarily I feel like sometimes it's easy to focus so much on that one driveway that we forget to back up and really look at what it does for motorists, pedestrians, and cyclists in the entire area. I think it was DJ who mentioned, you know, just overall traffic flow, traffic congestion, and pedestrian, I think you guys call them encounters or pedestrian conflict, is just greatly increased once you shut that driveway completely down. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Anne. Thank you, Binky.
Dave Rhodes.
Hey, everybody. Thanks so much. I think that's I think it's an interesting point that the previous caller brought up. But at the end of the day, I think that, we ought to try to advocate for what is the most likely scenario that's going to advocate for the best possible pedestrian and bike experience, and safest experience for folks walking around, and biking through this area. And my sense is that, eliminating one conflict or just totally eliminating this driveway, will be one less conflict point. So, and also having cars that are turning on or off of a smaller street will mean that they're turning in or on out of that parking lot at a much slower speed than along 3rd Street. So either people exiting 3rd Street onto the parking lot will be slower or non-existent, because so it's safer to do it off of Luton's than on 3rd. And also you would eliminate people accelerating onto 3rd quickly from that driveway. So, at the end of the day, I think that we ought to try to go with the best scenario for folks walking around and biking around in the area. And that's what this committee is for, to advocate for people on bikes and walking around. Let's try to make that the experience that we're trying to promote. And that's what I would encourage this committee to endorse. So thanks a lot.
Thank you, Lauren. Jean, I think is Lauren.
Jean, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Hi. I really like what Dave Rhodes said. I think it's very appropriate. I wanted to go back to Tyler's question. I drive, ride a bike, and walk in this parking lot, and I find it kind of bad for all three. And the idea of like having 3 more parking spaces close to Walgreens sounds great, and not having the confusing car circulation. It took me years to realize there's actually 3 entrances and exits. And have you looked at that thing like that goes out onto Sejos, I guess? And can you widen the exit onto Luton's? It's too narrow for the cars going in and out. Take away a parking space or 2 there, so the sight lines are better. Add those 3 at the exit, and then do you do something with that entrance exit onto Sejos, so that a lot of the cars going through the parking lot are then on 2 different streets? So it's just a thought. If you could address, maybe you've thought about it.
I think, April, are you going to answer questions at the end of the comment period? Or do you want to address that now?
I'll just address that one real fast. So the 3rd entrance that Jean is talking about is actually on Walgreens property. The city doesn't own that entrance because they use that for their pickups of their pharmacy. But we are going to talk to Walgreens about potentially reversing it. Instead of coming in, it could be an exit. But that's still ultimately their property. So we would have to talk to them about the logistics of that, if that actually would work with their operations.
Great.
Okay, Sunny Lee.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Lauren. Sorry about earlier that I was cooking dinner, so I couldn't part of the meeting. I didn't realize I was actually raised hands. I apologize for that. I think just April just commented that the Seahorse entrance is entrance only to pick up drive-through pharmacy pickup. I have never seen actually cars going to the parking lot through their road. So I don't know if someone clarify that. Also, having accident entrance to Luton's only from the parking lot and middle of the block of Luton's, and only enter to Luton's to get into the parking lot of the Walgreens could be dangerous, because it'll be exact same backup will happen, like current entrance that is directly straight north from the Lindaro. So I believe either way, having exit or not, you will have that backup happening on Luton's and far north side of the 3rd Street lane will have a backup when cars turning right onto Luton's from 3rd Street. So I actually prefer having at least the exit to Lindaro, towards Lindaro, so that way other cars not to circle around the whole block to get back on the Lindaro if they're coming from Brentford and southern part of the Santa Fe, southern part of the 2nd Street. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Sunny. Lauren, I'm wondering if you want to read any of the comments in the chat. And I don't know, Jean, you wrote a comment in the chat. I'm wondering if you want that read.
I'll give Jean a chance to respond in the chat. If she wants it read as public comment, she can just write public comment and I'll go back to that one. From Lori S. Every issue that you have cited will be moved 60 feet to the west to Luton's, but Luton's has no traffic control. This is not safe for pedestrians nor bicyclists. Widening the driveway, Jimmy is right. You can't say no red on red if there's no red light like on Luton's. Public comment from Lori. Widening the opening would alleviate any problem of people going in as one tries to go out. This is common sense, not rocket science. I want to know dates and time that traffic counts were done. This should be public information. Dates and times were included in the staff report in the agenda packet to answer that. And Jean's public comment from Jean Severinghouse. It still looks good for pedestrians. I'm concerned about the new senior housing going in. This needs to be as safe as possible on all 3 crosswalks for bicycles and pedestrians. This new solution looks fine at first glance. Much better than current very dangerous ped bike conditions in my multiple experiences as a user in both modes. I see, so that's it for written comment in the chat. I see another hand up, so I'll go back to that. Jonathan Toast.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm Jonathan Tosti. I was a former or first chairman for the BPAC in San Rafael. And I wanted to comment on one thing about the owned access through the parking lot to the that's owned by the drugstore, and I use it all the time. My pharmacy pickup is there at least once a month, and I know the downtown area quite well. And it's only a one way, but I use it 2 ways. I'm giving away a secret, I suppose, but that whole area is very difficult. And what I'd like to say is I was also for several years, 5 years, I believe, a member of the Art Commission or the Cultural Affairs Commission in San Rafael. And at that time, we're talking back in the late 80s, early 90s. And at that time, we were looking at a lot of making San Rafael easier to be with. And at that time, we didn't have the big employment centers across 2nd Street. So what I wanted to comment on was that the walkways between 2nd and across Lindaro and 3rd across Lindaro should it really be overpasses? And I haven't seen anything spoken about them, and I know they're expensive, but if we're talking about having as many employees are going to be there and on both sides of those intersections between 2nd and 3rd and 3rd going east, north and south, that I haven't heard anything about potential overpasses, and with such large constructions and such possible large employers, especially if the garage is turned into private structures for more business. Downtown San Rafael really needs to have large employee accesses during the middle of the day and in the evenings. And as everybody has spoken, it's terrible
Thank you.
access. Bicycles use the sidewalks. That may change with some of the new bicycle alignments.
Thank you, John.
All right, thank you for, I hope that helps.
Your 2 minutes is up.
Okay, I have a few more public comments. Lori S. Says counts from 2016 and 2017, there were no specific dates. Public comment from Binky. Are we going to get an additional crosswalk from the south side of 3rd to the north side of 3rd, anywhere between Lindaro and Brooks? On the corner of Luton's or somewhere else? We'll give folks another couple seconds to raise their hand or write in. Okay, seeing none.
Okay. So are there any other questions that either April or Lauren you would like to answer that came in during the public comment? Anything that you would like to refer to? I was thinking in particular, did you want to, is there any response to Binky's question in the public comment?
The comment about adding an additional crossing.
Yes, and also I think she was concerned about the heavy traffic on Luton's, the pedestrian traffic on Luton's. And did you want to, was there anything that you wanted to address about that?
Yeah, I'm happy to address that. I don't think that we would add a mid-block crossing on Luton's between 3rd and 4th. That, you know, when you look at adding a mid-block crossing, you have to look at sight lines. So I think if we were to do that, you'd have to eliminate a lot of parking spaces. And I know we want to keep as many parking spaces as possible. So there's a downside of adding a mid-block crossing. And then as well as on 3rd Street, we have discussed adding a crossing at Brook Street. That's gone back and forth, and that was kind of with the BioMarin development. I honestly don't know the status of where we're at with that. Maybe April can talk about that.
Yes, as far as the crosswalk at Brooks, the 3rd Street rehab project is actually installing a crosswalk there that's going to be signalized to help support the whistle stop development.
So actually, I'm sorry, could you say that again, April, about the pedestrian for the senior?
Yeah, so between Lindaro and A Street is Brook Street, which is a smaller street, and the senior housing for Whistle Stop is going to be at the corner of 3rd and Brooks, is the side of that open property where it's going to occur. So we're actually going to install a crosswalk with ramps that will be signalized across 3rd Street at Brooks as part of one of the 3rd Street projects. We've been working with Whistle Stop, and we're going to install it as part of the bar project.
Okay, great. And Jonathan's question, suggestion about overpasses, is that just totally out of a budget? Is there any, looking at south of 2nd and 3rd as being employment centers with BioMarin and who knows what in the industrial area over time, but was that something that is being considered at all by DPW or?
No,
Okay.
no grade, what is it? Not at grade, the opposite of at grade. Crossing, like a bridge over crossing or anything like that. I don't think that's in the budget.
Okay. All right. So let's move.
I
Okay,
can
go ahead.
pause. I know you had asked if we could respond to the public comment. If there were a lot of great public comments, and if any of the members want to ask staff for us to respond, there were so many things I don't know what to respond to. So if there's anything that stuck out to any of our members and you'd like staff to respond, we're happy to do that right now.
Okay, so let's close the public comment, and we've closed the public comment. And so maybe what we could do is it's time for the BPAC committee. You can respond to questions. You can ask the staff to respond to questions that were asked by the public, or you can offer your own comments. And I was wondering who had comments, wanted to start. DJ.
I have a question. Can you just provide an update? What level of design the 3rd Street rehab project is? When you expect to have your design package complete, and also the city's process for how they're evaluating these alternatives and how the city's going to select which alternative they want.
So we have 2 3rd Street projects. The third, they actually meet at Luton's. So the rehab project is around, we just finished about 65% design. That's the one with the 2nd Street bike path is included on that project.
Mm-hmm.
And the safety project, we actually received 100% documents back in December. So we're now we put our consultant on hold and so that we could look at this second alternative and receive some more feedback, so we know whether or not we need to change our design before we go and submit our plans to Caltrans. So I've sent out my email to people, and I can add it to the chat. I asked to receive public comment from people on the 3rd Lindaro intersection until Friday, so that we can gather all of the information and just kind of hear what the public has to say. We've already received lots of feedback before we came up with the second alternative. About keeping the driveway open. So we're hoping, and since then we've received some feedback. I'm not sure how to answer how we're going to come up with a decision on what we're going to do. We're just receiving feedback to know what the public wants. I mean, so far, I guess Bill's going to jump on.
Well, I will. We're looking forward to the feedback from the BPAC on this agenda item. It is something that's controversial. There are a lot of people that have provided us comment on closing the intersection itself. We're evaluating the 2 alternatives, and we're gonna look forward to the feedback from this committee, other feedback that we're getting from the community. Then we're gonna make a decision about how to proceed.
Well, for what it's worth, for my feedback, I think that the exit only alternative to me seems like a great compromise that balances the concerns of the public with regards to circulation. And also helps reduce the head conflict a little bit. But to be honest, it's not a BPAC item, but I think that closing the entrance also has a lot of benefit for traffic throughput, and traffic throughput is honestly very frustrating for me sometimes. So I see that as a benefit as well. So thanks.
Okay, Phil, I think you were next.
Yeah. I think when framing these projects and these options, I think it's important to keep in mind all of the changes that are coming, exciting changes that are coming to this intersection, including the Biomarin stop and Whistle stop. That intersection is going to be home to retail space. I think it's 3,500 square feet of retail space, plus all the workers of Biomarin, plus a public park, plus senior housing. So I think that makes sort of ADA access more important. And so if I'm thinking of this intersection is going to see a lot more use and a lot more pedestrians. That's how I think about this in the future. And so that's what I think we ought to be designing for. And so if you are somebody who is at this new facility and wanted to go north into town, currently this would route you a pretty circuitous route across crosswalks to get into the heart of downtown. So you'd first have to do a crosswalk on Lindaro, and then a crosswalk going north across 3rd Street, and then a third crosswalk to go to this potential Walgreens entrance, which I think is difficult. There were some written public comments that came in. One of them was talking about additional conflicts between cars and pedestrians. if you were to close that in total. And she provided a map of ways you would go. And in that map, you know, she sort of created a lot of ways to have to cross traffic, a lot of really difficult ways. And I think there's many easier ways to do that with normal right turns and crosswalks that doesn't involve swerving all across traffic. And so, you know, my preference, frankly, my pretty strong preference is to close it. You know, I think it will be much better for pedestrians. I think, you know, there is increased traffic on Luton's and people will have to walk across Luton's and that entrance. But again, that's a slower street. You're not dealing with slower speeds. You're not dealing with 3rd Street traffic. And so those are my thoughts. It's just that it's important to think about a large influx of pedestrians coming to that spot.
Tyler, did you have a?
Yeah, so I think it should be looked into if some redesigning of the Walgreens drive-through area can be used. And actually, I'm not sure if the city or not owns the law office side part, on the very side there. But if they do, you could almost even make it 2 lanes possibly on there, and you could dump people out onto Seahose Street, and then they could get around by making a right onto 4th and then onto Lincoln, potentially. But so I do think it should be looked at and potentially.
Okay. Anybody else? Kevin? You're muted, Kevin.
Sorry about that. I support DJ's position. I think the city's amended recommendation is the best one that tries to address concerns raised by a whole number of people.
Great. Anybody else? Barry?
Yeah, but I feel like most of my comments are probably more from the driving perspective, because I really have challenges with the maneuvering in that parking lot can be really difficult. And I think particularly, I do think people pulling in westbound traffic on 3rd, taking a right is difficult, especially as people are lining up to get out or people are backing out of the center spaces or things. I guess one of the questions I would raise on the pedestrian question is just to make sure that that the visibility is good there. I know there are hedges and there's a number of things that are right near the entrance there. So in redesigning that entrance, just to make sure that there's good visibility, I think that might help address some of the concerns about pedestrians walking across and not being able to be seen very easily.
Okay, great. Mark?
Yeah, I mean, my initial reaction after hearing and reading the public comments and listening to the presentation and staff is that our charge is to improve pedestrian and bicycle movement around the city. And because of that, my initial reaction was to support closing that driveway altogether. Having said that, I do have an understanding in the spirit of cooperation of what we're trying to do with the Biden and Harris administration. I am open to the concept of what DJ was saying also, and what staff has come up with, a kind of a unique and an interesting idea of trying to please both sides, if you will, on this. So I do appreciate what staff has done, and I could support that as well. My initial and my first preference would be to close it, though, if possible.
Jimmy, did you have a comment?
No, I tend to think along the lines of closing it, seeing that, you know, it doesn't need to have high-speed roads that are slowed down, and all the entrance and exit can go from the side road.
And Anne, did you? Oh, sorry, Jimmy.
I was just saying, I think that makes it safer for for everybody involved.
Much as I think it would be great to come to a compromise, I feel long-term it would be safer to keep it closed. And that way, when you're having cyclists cycling on 3rd, they won't have any other conflicts.
Okay. Any other comments from the committee? April, I was wondering what if there's a preference now from staff who's been working on this for a while. Just wondering if you're pretty comfortable with the driveway exit only, or if you still feel strongly, after having worked on this for years, that it should be. Is that an appropriate question, Bill?
If you don't mind, we presented the alternative because we think it is a viable alternative.
Okay.
We're comfortable with both alternatives. We're looking for the right solution here. There are a lot of reasons to close the entrance. There's a lot of reasons why a southbound movement makes sense. And we are comfortable with both alternatives, or we would not have been presenting them tonight.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Well, my comment is, I really think that Public Works has moved towards a really expanded public process, and it's allowed the public to have opportunities to talk about impacts that they see as users and as neighbors and community members. So I really appreciate all of the work that has gone into this. There were a couple of additional public comments that Lori had mentioned, that she would like to see the exit be 2 lanes, one going west and one going south. I don't know. I couldn't tell from the last picture if that driveway is a 1-car exit or a 2-car exit. And the other was, is there another public meeting scheduled? Another meeting? Well, when's the next opportunity that people will be able to, if there is one?
Yeah, so for your second question, currently there is not a public meeting scheduled to talk about this concept. As I mentioned before, I'm still receiving public comment via email, or people can call me. My phone number is on our 3rd Street website to discuss. So yeah, we're open to receiving comments, but as for a public forum, the next chance to talk about this driveway would be at City Council when we present the project to go out or for construction.
Okay, great. Okay, I think the public comment was closed, but did somebody else I'm seeing one panelist with a hand raised. Oh, it's Phil. Do you have another comment, Phil? I can never tell if you're. Okay.
Yeah, sorry. There was in the chat, there was a comment from Binky to me asking me about the north-south motion and looking at her map again. So I just wanted to address that if I may. I did actually go down there yesterday in the afternoon to look at that. And I went, Tilly, I'm talking, just 1 second, please. And so, and then in her letter that she was writing about primarily concerns crossing the city going north-south. I certainly, in her comment, she mentions Lindaro. I do totally agree that closing this will make it more difficult to go down Lindaro. But in terms of north-south options, there's Lincoln, there's Anderson, there's A Street, there's B Street, which is going to be coming 2-way traffic. There's the new 2-way traffic on C and D Street. So I see plenty of ways to go north-south. It is true that this would be one way to go specifically on Lindaro that could be more difficult to go south, but I think there are plenty of alternatives to that. And again, these are all trade-offs. I just see keeping that open and being able to drive out of that Walgreens parking, I think creates a much more dangerous situation for pedestrians and for bicycles, which is what I'm here mainly to advocate for. I also drive a car. I live in Gerstle Park, so I know this area well. And so I understand that, but I do think there's plenty of options, and I do see this as a troublesome intersection for bikes and peds. And so that's why I make the comments I do, but I appreciate Binky's note.
Okay. Any last comments from committee members? We'll close this item. April and Lauren and Bill, do you feel like you've gotten the input that you wanted sufficiently? I'm going to assume yes. Okay, so we're going to
Yes,
Okay.
thank you very much.
Okay.
We appreciate
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for your presentation, April. So we're going to move on to agenda item number 6, which is a presentation on the capital improvement program.
Okay, you get to hear from me again tonight. Okay, so we just wanted to go over, oh no, went from the beginning, sorry. Okay. So city staff just wanted to kind of go over what our CIP is, because it's the time of year where we start looking at our capital improvement program and looking at it is a 3-year planning tool, which, as you can see, we categorize and prioritize different capital projects that are within the city. And so this is about the time of year where we start to look at different projects that could be included in this 3-year planning tool. So there's a bunch of different funds that are in the CIP document. The ones that are specifically related to bike and peds are the ones I've listed here. Fund 206 is our gas tax, and that can be used towards capital projects or maintenance of local streets. Our Fund 241 it's a Measure A, and that's for parks and open spaces, which also can relate to bikes within those parks and open spaces. And then Fund 246, which is our traffic mitigation fee. This fee is charged to developers, and that fee can be used towards projects that are in the general plan, which are involved with circulation issues related projects. And as always, the city is always looking for different grants that help us do additional projects. So the CIP process, so how does a project become a project? So we receive projects from our maintenance crews or other city departments that are not public works. Sometimes there's public inquiries about different potential projects in the city, and those make it to a list to be reviewed, and also grant funding opportunities. So if there's certain grants that come up, sometimes that sparks a project based on what those grant requirements are looking for. So once we have a list of projects, which we have an ongoing list, but once we have additional things from the last year, we have a working group that ranks the projects. This group is made up of all the different departments within the city, and we look at the projects that are on this list, and we rank them. And then once we rank them, we review our funding based on the top ranked projects, and then we create our 3-year plan. So here's an example of how we rate projects. So we rate them on health, safety, and liability, priority initiative, time sensitive, and whether or not there's grant funding associated with that. And then, if it maintains or enhances functionality. All this is described in detail in our CIP document, which is located on the city website. So if you want to see more about how a project ranked last year or how this process works, it's there. This is just a little bit of an overview. So how do bike and ped projects get added to the CIP? So they get added to the CIP by being part of the bike and ped master plan. So that there's going to be an update to the bike and ped master plan that's going to be in 2022. So if there's projects that people from the community or BPAC wants to consider being part of this new update, now's the time to start, read about it. And then that process will actually be kicked off in early next year. And I know the BPAC will be thoroughly involved with that, and there'll be lots of public outreach on that update. It's about a year-long process. And just to go over some of the projects that will be completed in this fiscal year that were part of our CIP. We did some improvements at 3rd and Heatherton. The Francisco Boulevard East Sidewalk should be done this spring. The Francisco West, the multi-use path through there, and class 4 bike path is almost complete. If anybody happened to ride their bike today, they saw we installed the green bollards along the buffer. So it's pretty much open. We just need to officially open it. And then the Sanderfeld High School crosswalk should be open in the next couple months. Some of the anticipated design construction bike and ped projects are obviously the 3rd Street project we've been talking about. That's set to start construction this summer, and it's going to be about a year-long process. There's a canal neighborhood crosswalks. There's a bunch of different intersections in the canal district that we've received grant funding for, and that we're going to go out to bid in the next month. So that will also be constructed this summer. And then one of the projects that is currently set to be designed next year is there's a Woodland Avenue retaining wall and sidewalk project that was part of our CIP document last year that we're set to design. There's a few more. This was just an initial list that are projects we know that are in the queue. So I don't know if anybody has any questions on what is the CIP but this is just a quick overview. I'll stop sharing.
April, I have a quick question for you. Do you monitor sales of electric bikes and the transition that we're having from cars to more people on bikes these days? When we're planning?
I don't specifically monitor that. No, I don't. But I mean, I know that in general, the world's going to move more towards bikes, just from what I've been hearing, but not about electrical bikes.
Okay.
Are there other questions?
I'd be curious if we could get some data on sales for electric bikes and what the projection is.
Jim, I just saw some stuff like that. I'll try to dig it up and send it to you both for bike sales and electric bike sales. Also projections for the next 10 years in the bike industry. It was a bicycle retailer article. I'll see if I can send that out to everybody. The answer is a lot more electric bikes and a lot more bikes in general, but also electric bikes like outstripping normal bikes in 10 or 15 years from now, something like that.
Tyler, you had a question. Before we open up to public comment, this is the time for questions of staff, and then we will again offer our comments at the end. Tyler, did you have a question?
Yeah, by the way, Phil, send me that too. That sounds really interesting. I'm just curious on what made you guys decide on the year of how often the bicycle pedestrian master plan is updated and stuff, and why can it be updated and stuff like ongoing? I just personally feel like if there is some major thing and someone from the public wants to come in with an idea, that it should be able to be implemented mid-year, because I mean projects and stuff, if it happens partway through the bicycle pedestrian master plan, like it's too late then. I mean, is there any way around that? Or, I mean, have you guys thought about that, or what's your input?
I would say generally like the big projects that we want to get done and there's grant funding out for, they're probably in the bike and pedestrian master plan one way or another, whether it says it's a study or there's an overarching project that says to upgrade mid-block crossings. You can kind of say, you can point to the master plan and say, yes, it's in there. I can't get into more detail, I guess, without a great example. But the other thing you asked, about the cycle. So it has to be, in order to be eligible for grant funding, you have to have a regularly updated master plan. And I believe that's every 5 years. So our last one was updated it was adopted in 2018. Our next one needs to be adopted in 2023. So we need to start the process in 2022. And it's a significant process. We have to, we bring on a consultant. It costs a fair amount of money. So, and it just, we're on that 5-year cycle.
And some projects do. I don't actually know if the Woodland retaining wall project is in the bike and ped master plan, but that is something that just has come up from our maintenance crews and being around town. So there are projects that end up in the queue, sometimes that aren't in the bike and ped master plan, but it just depends.
Yeah, that's what I was asking about basically. Like, I mean, there is a way for projects like that to get in there and stuff. Okay.
Yeah, there's a funny
in the CIP or yeah, because the CIP references the bike and ped master plan as well as other plans. There's park plans. There's stuff from
okay.
Police. So
Yeah, generally speaking, Tyler, the bike and ped master plan is very commonly a tool for grant funding applications. Most grant funding applications require you to point to a plan that shows the project you're trying to get money for, to show them that it's actually a project you've wanted to do. So when we get these plans developed, the city is able to use that as a tool to help improve their competitiveness for grant funding by saying, well, we want to do this project. It's been in our plan. See our plan right here. It's adopted by the council. And
Any oth-
and also just a note, but the whole reason that this committee exists also, in addition to having an adopted bike and ped master plan, most cities have to have a organized bike and ped advisory committee. That's kind of the other thing that makes you eligible for grant funding as well, in addition to the plan.
There you go. Thank you.
Are there any other questions or clarifications from the committee? Okay, I think we should move on to public comment. Lauren? And I see at least one hand. I think it's Craig.
Patrick's
Oh,
side.
Patrick, I'm sorry.
Patrick should be able to press.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Good evening once again. It's good to see all of you. To Phil's comment about electric bikes, if there's any additional information, Phil, maybe you and I should talk, because I've got, you guys may not know this, but Transportation Alternatives from Marin has like a board seat on Cycling Industries Europe, where over 50% of bike sales are electric. And we have all sorts of data, access to that. And we also have a board seat on People for Bikes. And we have all sorts of data that we could present and bring in for that. And so Phil, maybe you and I should talk, and certainly the committee should see it, because here's what's going to go on, guys. And they're talking about the next 5 years in Europe, they're going to double the amount of bicycle sales. And it's going to be mostly electric. And so the people who are saying those things it's real stuff. So I think it's important to follow up on. Regarding the CIP, my question for staff is it possible to put some, DJ's right, you got to put it in the plan first. It's the first place something goes. And then if you talk to the guy who knows how to really build stuff and build a lot of it, his name's Farhad Mansourian, and he's executive director of SMART. The way he does it, he outlined it today in the SMART meeting. Says, get the environmental clearances, get 30% engineering, and get the permits in hand. And if you have that, you'll be more competitively advantaged than other folks that are out there. And there's a lot of money that's going to be coming down soon. There's money coming. I'm telling you, it's like, it happens every once in a while. This is one of those things, recovery of a recession. They're going to invest in transportation. They want to see projects in the ground. You guys are really fortunate, because the Department of Public Works in San Rafael is very organized and out in front of it. But you guys should be working on what I think a strategic plan to implement what you have inside your bicycle and pedestrian plan, where you might qualify better for projects that are going to be funded. So, and then one of which was the Las Galinas to Marydale Civic Center Smart Station. And the other one was Grand Avenue from 3rd to 4th and 5th. But you guys, there's a lot of great projects out there. And I encourage you to maybe like rethink things a little bit. Maybe like have like a meeting every month for a couple months. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Patrick. Sorry to be the time Nazi. Okay, there's some more questions.
I'll go through phone in and then I'll go through the chat. Craig Murray.
Hi, so I mentioned that Thursday at the TAM, there'll be an e-bike study that kind of continue on the e-bike theme. Also, Marin's aging, and we have hills, so it seems like e-bike's kind of a good thing for all of us. And then one of the things I've been harping on all the meetings is there seems to be an over-reliance of projects in the 94901 zip, and we really need to start focusing in the 94903 zip code area. And there are some projects already in the bike ped plan, and I've already addressed council on some of the development fees to be used, and planning staff might want to get more aligned with the public works staff and the BPAC committee and making sure we get at least some local commitment of funds. But I appreciate Patrick and other comments and everybody volunteering tonight. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Craig.
Sunny Lee.
Sorry that I'm keep commenting on things. I'm rather very concerned about the bike thefts happening a lot in Santa Fe, since we have ever so growing people reside now under the Freeway 101. We have noticed it like burglaries and every other day I'm hearing from so on acquaintances losing their bikes from their garages, even backyard that is only accessible from coming around their fences or gate. So I have I have some concerns about BPAG is supporting bicyclists to buy more bikes and having more bike ride every day. But at this point, I even concerned, my family members are concerned to even bike to the downtown to have some errands, because there's a chance it might be just gone, even though having a security lock. So if there's any plans as a citywide prevent bikes to be not stolen so much from the streets or certain places. That's it.
Well, I did, just wondering if anyone could, Lauren or April, you could comment on it. Is there data collected about bike theft downtown or in certain areas of San Rafael? Because it seems like it is a problem.
The police would have data on that. I don't have information.
Because we did focus a lot of energy into putting bike parking downtown. It just would be interesting to know whether or not there is a problem and where it is.
Those e-bikes look real attractive.
Right.
Someone tried to sell me a $10,000 e-bike. We have one more comment. No, two more comments. Dave Rhodes.
Hey, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Great. Thanks. Sounds like this public comment specifically is just for the CIP. I think that some of the points brought up earlier are all really, every point brought up so far on this agenda item from the comment is really important. It sounds like it'd be really useful for us to start brainstorming what are some of the things that aren't on the current plan that we think could be could be added to the next plan. Just start this process early on. Start to get consensus. There's a lot of issues. I think we could certainly talk about a lot of stuff that's that's more pertinent to today's very acute issues like the bike theft thing, which I think this committee could definitely talk about and advocate more for. But I also think that let's start thinking about how we can advocate for things to be in this the next bike and ped plan and the CIP. I guess are these, and maybe I should ask a question, are these two things separate? Like, is the CIP something for like a fiscal year? I'm sorry, I don't know this, but I'm trying to learn as much as I can. But if that's for like the next year or two, do those align with the bike and ped plan? Is there something that we need to do more urgently than the updated bike and ped plans? So those are some of the questions that I have, and just trying to work together to get some ideas going, and what's the right timing for the right ideas. So thanks.
I guess I'll answer part of Dave's questions. So the CIP is a 3-year planning tool. So we do it on fiscal years. So they start in July, and typically like the first year of the CIP are where funds are allocated to those projects. And the next 2 years, as you get further away, it's a projection of what we think money will go towards. But typically that first year is like, this is what we're going to try to get done this next fiscal year, unless, we had a huge cut with the pandemic, and but we lost a bunch of funds or reduced funds that way. So there was some this year kind of we had to move around some projects. So that's why some haven't been started yet. But so it doesn't align with necessarily with the bike and ped plan because it's on fiscal year. But I mean, we definitely, some of our projects are from the bike and ped master plan that we're currently working on, like the 3rd Street or the 2nd Street bike path, which got incorporated.
Right. Lauren.
Okay, Jean Severinghouse.
Did I get unmuted?
Yes.
Yep.
So April, I really appreciate your bringing the capital improvement process forward because it's often been a mystery to me over the last 20 years. So that's great. And actually, I mean, the whole San Rafael staff is really being proactive about biking now. It's a thrill actually to watch. I wanted to ask about whether the CIP could move to 30% engineering the pathway connection missing from the top of Portosuelo Hill down along Smart to North San Pedro Road and connecting across the tracks over to the Ranchitos pathway. It's really a bad missing segment for those of us who are all ages and abilities bikers who can't do the fast Ranchitos and can't get through the bad intersection at the bottom of Marydale to go left on North San Pedro. So is that something that the CIP could handle? I mean, I'm sort of thinking that echoing some of the other comments about it'd be great to have a strategic planning process for getting the really critical north-south greenway missing connections like Tamalpais Avenue. How do we get that into the pipeline for grants and so forth? Thanks.
Yeah, I think that I mean, I've seen that project. That project's the one that's in the bike and ped master plan, and projects like that are even to get the 30% design would take a lot of funding, and we would have to secure some sort of grant funding even to get to 30%. So that's just something we'd have to look at in order to do that. And I think there's coordination that would have to happen with SMART itself and Caltrans. But I mean, it's something that we can look into to see what even the project cost would be for something like that.
Thank you, Jean. Are there any other public comments, Lauren, that either from the chat or it looks like Jean might have?
Yeah, there are public comments. I don't think I read this earlier. This is from Lori S. This committee has made it apparent that this is for bicycles and pedestrians only. It would not be right to have a separate meeting for the actual driving sector of people. Public comment from Jean. I believe she just spoke on this, and that was about the 30% plans for the connection paralleling Los Ranchitos.
Okay. So if there is no more, there's no other public comment, we'll close the public comment period. And are there any other public comments that I think you responded to all the questions? So we'll move to member comments on the CIP process. Does anybody have any further questions or comments on the CIP process? April, one thing that I was wondering about is under the funding sources, you listed Measure A, which is parks. Measure AA with TAM has different buckets of money for different municipalities plus the county and different things. I'm wondering how we might get some of our bike ped master plan projects funded through, partially at least through TAM, meaning, finding what bucket those projects might fall under. I think that's a really important source of income through the sales tax. And then the other thing is, so the master plan was last updated in 2018, and it took us I think it took us a couple of years to actually get it completed. So some projects have been moved along, and other, moved along. There might be some projects that have been completed. And I think it might be valuable to relook at the priority projects in that document. As a BPAC, it might be valuable. Why can't we just look at the priorities? It would be good to look at, start the process in anticipation of updating the master plan in 2022. But I do think these projects are really important, and things change. So much has changed with the pandemic even. Maybe as part of a work plan, which is in our charter, that we could look at the master plan once a year and kind of look at what we have prioritized and what we might want to prioritize as a committee, and then determine how we would advise the city council and DPW staff that we would like to see that on the CIP project list bumped up or something like that. And also because there are sources of money do change, grant opportunities do change. And so some of those projects that are in the master plan, because of the current funding, focuses that might be happening with the active transportation grants and things like that might be more implementable or more cost effective, et cetera. So I think it would be worthwhile at looking at our master plan every year, and knowing that the CIP, that there's opportunity through the CIP process to move some things along.
Yeah, so just respond to your first question about Measure A. So one of the things I didn't show in gas tax is where some of that gas tax comes from. And some of it is Measure A funding that helps fund our capital program and our maintenance group, which, and I guess I could have, if you go and look in our CRP, we actually have charts or pie charts that show, like, I mean, it's like 40% goes to maintenance, or some percentage of the pie that we have goes towards our maintenance program. And part of that is Measure A. We also get money from a state Senate Bill or Senate Bill 1, which was passed a few years ago. And that is primarily for pavement restoration. So if you look at our pie chart of how much money we have, there's a certain portions that we have to allocate to certain things that can't even ever make it to a different project because we have to focus it on pavement or maintenance. And then the pie keeps getting smaller and smaller. So that's where we're like, oh, we got grants. That's the only way we could have done Francisco East and West and 3rd Street, and pretty much every project that I showed that we've completed this year or coming up next year, all grant funded. So I do like your idea of, maybe the BPAC could revisit the bike and ped master plan each year and kind of look at it. I know I thoroughly went through the priority projects prior to this meeting, and I was looking at it. And there are a few projects where I just, I read the description and it was like, wow, we're going to need like $20 million to do something like this. And, they're kind of just sticker shock projects, which would require some grant funding. So maybe we could try to find a way to do smaller projects or something too.
But I think it's a great comment, April, that we're actively and aggressively pursuing grant funding for all these projects. We've been really on top of that and trying to get as many projects as we can through grant funding.
And the other thing, last thing I wanted to bring up was pedestrian district for a pedestrian plan. The comments are due by a couple days from now. That underpass, we're along the south walkway of the Civic Center's train station, that there's no improvement, paving wise there. And I know that there's multiple jurisdictions that have to work together. It's SMART, it's Caltrans, and it's DPW. But if SMART, to Patrick's comments, if SMART has some funding, Caltrans is making an effort, focusing energy on highway crossings, either under crossings or over crossings. Now would be the time to push those projects in terms of looking for opportunities of working with the other agencies on prioritizing those, I think. And then, So I'm hoping that, I'm not sure how that works, if DPW comments on the pedestrian plan for Caltrans, but I think, you know, committee members could, but also the bike highway that Caltrans has out for comment as well. Just looking at opportunities through San Rafael, you know, with the regional stuff that's going on, I think is great. Any other committee comments on the CIP process? Barry?
Well, and actually just to add what you were saying, I mean, another planning effort for us to keep our eye on is MTC is going to be doing a regional bike and ped plan I think starting up in the next few months. So it's something that we could definitely be in sync with. I guess as far as us providing recommendations, I think it might be helpful to have a little more of a detailed breakdown about, you know, April, you were saying how, you know, there are certain pots of funds that are not flexible, they're allocated only for specific purposes. And if we have a sense of, well, how much funding is available that could potentially go into any number of projects, that we might be able to say, you know, this is what we would like to see that money go toward, or maybe we could weigh in on, you know, are there certain projects that this would be a great opportunity to get some grant funding? And, you know, I just think that there's things at different stages, and I know you're trying to put a lot of different pieces together and figure out where the matching funds come from and all that. So I kind of feel like there's like multiple lists of things that we could be doing. Part of it is just at the very high level of where do we start studying, and then part of it is where do you move money around that you can actually get something on the ground. So I don't know if there's any way to have a more focused discussion about this.
Yeah, I think we'd have to think about that, because there's not extra money per se
Right.
with the CIP. So you know, sometimes that's why a lot of the bike and ped master plan projects get tagged on to another project, or even just a study. For instance, our 3rd Street safety project intersects Grand Avenue. So we had our consultant look at what would a bike connection be from the Grand Avenue Bridge to 4th Street. So we actually did a concept plan, which I presented, I think it was to the December meeting, to show like, so now we have a concept so that when we have grant funding that comes up, we already have a concept, so we can go, oh, look at here, this project, we have this project, so we could actually come up with a budget for it, and it's a viable, you know, grant funded project. So that's usually how the projects kind of get tagged onto projects that are in the vicinity of another project that received funding.
Yeah, and I mean, just some of the grant funding sources are out there are just so limited and competitive. I mean, if we were going to go after active transportation program funds, it's like, well, the odds of getting anything is pretty minimal, and if there's any chance, it'd probably be in the Canal District. I mean, it's just very much, if you're not serving the underserved community, you're pretty much out of the running. So it's just a matter of figuring out, yeah, what opportunities are there that are realistic for us to even go after, and what are the projects that match up with those.
Tyler, did you, in the interest of, we're at 8:02, Tyler, did you have a last comment about the CIP process?
Yeah, I just basically, for one, agree with both what Kate and Barry said. I mean, sorry, lost my train of thought for a second. Sorry. I think that right now is a time that the city should look into, I guess, I don't know if reform is the right word, but more of refining this process. And I think a lot of people have mentioned how a lot of things today and stuff, and I feel like this is an opportunity, especially with just the worldwide Great Reset and stuff coming. I mean, yeah. Sorry.
That's okay. Okay, so we're gonna close item 6 and just move on to item 7 on the agenda. Do any committee members have a request for future agenda items? Let me know. Tyler?
Yeah, what Patrick Seidler mentioned, I mean, I think I personally trust what he said and stuff. I mean, if with the committees he's on, if there is money coming, I believe we should get kickstarted on that process of just fast tracking that and getting stuff to 30% engineering and such. And I mean, even meet more often, frankly. I feel like if we could.
Okay, and I think it would be helpful to look at the north-south Greenway and what segment that's left, and how do we get that? Where are we on that, and how can we get that done? Might be a great future agenda item. Anybody have anything else? And I want to thank you for being the timekeeper. And without, Mark?
Just real quick, I just want to say thanks. Good job for your first meeting.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, good job.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so Lauren, did you have anything else to add at the end of the meeting?
No, thank you everyone for your great feedback. We really wanted to hear from you about Third and Lindaro, so staff appreciates it. And I think this was a great meeting. Thanks to Chair Powers for doing a great job and with the timing.
And I want to just thank our attendees for all your comments and for attending, and I'll see you guys next time. The meeting
adjourned at
8:05. Bye, everybody. Thanks.